Can the audience hear us? Yes, perfect. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us on a session on the end-to-end digital ecosystem. As is true with all ecosystems, it takes a village to put together, and that's why the organizers made an exception of allowing more speakers than is usually the case. My name is Chandrasekhar Sinha. I am the Global Lead for Carbon Markets and Finance at the World Bank. And the session will have a number of speakers that you can see already. Let me just introduce them very briefly to you. And in case I make a mistake, which is very likely in a very multicultural panel, if I make mistakes in names, they can correct me when they get on the floor. So on my immediate right is Masamba Thioe. He leads the innovation work at UNFCCC, and in fact, way before any one of us knew the existence of digital ecosystems, Masamba had been working on it. Next to him is Jan Willem. I will not try his full name. I understand there are 4 more to come in that sequence, but all of us know him as Jan Willem. He heads the climate work at European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, EBRD. Next to Jan Willem is Alexandra Souza. We call her Alex. She leads the work at UNDP, the Chief Technical Advisor on Climate Markets and Carbon Markets. Next to Alex is our own colleague, my own colleague, Gemma Torres. Then we have Juan Duran from Eco Registry and Benoit from Vera. So Benoit Clement from Vera. So as you can tell, this is the reflection of the full ecosystem, all the way from those involved in putting together the projects to the regulators to registries to standards. So if you move the slide next, and the partnership that we are going to talk about is the Digital for Climate partnership, where the goal is to try to develop this ecosystem with different parts of the institutions that we represent, playing a different role and sometimes more than one role in developing the ecosystem. But the fundamental principle for that is that it's all interoperable. It is all done in a way that it all fits together. It is modular, it fits together, it's open source, it's free to license. It's an attempt to create a global public good for this. So next slide, please. And the ecosystem itself consists of, going from my left to right on the slide, the digital methodology moving towards the use of machine learning, artificial intelligence, a whole lot of things that are happening to automate the process of the development of methodology, and Masamba will talk more about that. Then there is the element of a digital workflow where UNDP has been leading the way on the platform, the ITMO platform, cooperation platform. There'll be more discussion on that. And the most difficult piece, if I may say so, is moving towards digitizing the monitoring, reporting, verification, where EBRD has been taking the lead with the World Bank working on this as well. And then, of course, there is the registry layer and the metadata layer. And Gemma will talk more about the offerings on the registry and the metadata layer, while Alex will also talk about the UNDP's work on the registry as well. The elements that we are not going to discuss here today, the transaction layer, creating the tokenization engine, and a whole lot of service layer. Again, an event will follow this one. Gemma will give you a better sense of it, where some of that, the Climate Action Data Trust, and some of the more exciting developments would be discussed there. So we would encourage you to stay on for the session that follows this for discussion around the Climate Action Data Trust. So with this, let me just start the presentations or interventions by the panel. Hand it over to Masamba. Floor is yours, Masamba.
Thank you, Chandra, and good afternoon to all the participants. My name is Masamba Choi. I'm leading the UN Climate Change Global Innovation Hub. at the UNFCCC Secretariat. So as you all know, one of the challenges of the CDM was two of the challenges of the CDM. It was twofold. One was the complexity of the mechanism that did not facilitate broad participation, and also the fact that we did not have good regional distribution of project linked to the first problem. So simplification was something extremely important in the context of the CDM. As you all know, when you are developing a methodology, you are facing a lot of constraint. You would like to have a methodology that is broadly applicable, but at the same time able to accommodate specificities. And you would like to have a methodology with requirements that are enough objective, in the sense that they do not provide room for interpretation. And if you would like to achieve all these objectives, it will necessarily lead to something that is quite complex. So what we wanted to do is to be able to achieve this objective while hiding the complexity to the user of the mechanism, because you cannot simplify and oversimplify, because then you will have a methodology that is not reflecting the reality on the ground. So the idea was, how can we shift the complexity at the site of the regulatory body so that the user do not see this complexity? So in this journey, we had several steps. First, we started from putting in place a program of activities. A program of activities is a methodology with narrower applicability condition. You take a methodology, you restrict its applicability condition, and because you have restricted its applicability condition, there is possibility to simplify the requirement. This was the first steps, but it was far from being enough. Next step was to develop the standardized baseline framework, where one key element, the calculation of the baseline, was taken of the responsibility of the project developer to the DNA. So you develop one standardized baseline for a country, for a sector, and all type of project activities can use that single standardized baseline. This was still not enough. And this is what prompted us to move toward digitization of methodology, which is a kind of smart contract. And the basic idea behind was to say, why are we asking project developer to do things that they do not have the expertise to do? Why are we asking them to identify baseline? Why are we asking them to demonstrate additionality? Why are we asking them to calculate emission reduction, and they are not supposed to have the skills to do so? The regulatory body is supposed to know how to do all these different things. So the idea was to find a way to develop a digital system that will request the project developer to just input the information about its activities, what the project developer knows. And then the systems will do whatever else is left. So what we mimic is a discussion between a project developer and a virtual consultant that would have, for example, to develop a PDD for a project developer. If I'm a consultant and I want to develop a PDD for a project developer, I will ask some basic information to understand what the project is about, to understand which methodology is applicable, to identify what are the requirements that are applicable, and then ask for the data that will allow me to do the calculation. And with all these things, I can prepare a PDD. This is exactly what was mimic. So we use a quite sort of powerful SurveyMonkey tool that asks questions to the user of the mechanism and then the user of the mechanism respond to this different question, and the system can figure out what are the requirements that are applicable, and to use this requirement, what are the data that need to be provided by the user, and then can generate digital PDD, can also be used to generate a digital monitoring report, and then moving forward can be used for virtual validation of project. So this was the first steps. Next slide. Now, this has been already done, and we have digitized ACM2. This is already available. This is the most used methodology under the CDM, and it is possible now to generate in an automated manner a project design document or a monitoring report using ACM2. This was good, but we felt that there was room for future improvement. This is what I will call digitized methodology 1.0. So the 2.0 would be a system where you actually do not select the methodology. Because under the CDM, there was more than 200 methodology, and I can tell you that this is a jungle where you can be easily lost. To identify which methodology is applicable to your specific activity is sometimes very challenging. So the 2.0 would be a system where you provide information, and then the digital system will figure out what is the applicable methodology to your specific case. This is the 2.0. We have started theoretical work on that, and we have a good idea of how to get there. But this will still not be enough, because what about the activities for which you do not have existing methodology in place? So this is a 3.0 system that we would like to develop, hopefully in 1 year timeline, if the resources are available. And this is really about building the required methodology on the fly. So it means that we will have a modular system where you have the key component that are used to develop a methodology, because most of the time we have more than 200 methodologies. We can have actually more than thousands of methodologies that are addressing specific case. But if you look at their content, actually this is a combination of a limited number of modules. If you are able to identify what these modules are, maybe 20, 25, 30, and then digitize them and put them in a library, then the system can ask a question to understand what is the type of activity that need to be addressed, and the system can itself develop the right methodology, customized methodology for the specific activity. So it means that moving forward, what you will need to do is not to develop a completely new methodology, but probably you will realize moving forward that some component are lacking. So you have 25, but maybe there is a 26 that is needed to address a specific type of activity. So you will simply add this module. So this is the journey that we would like to conduct. And again, I'm very pleased to be in this community under the Digital for Climate, where under the leadership of Chandra, who quickly realized that there was ongoing work in our different organizations that put together can achieve one of the dreams that we have. The dream is to have a rural woman in the rural area of Senegal, for example, using an improved cook stove and getting carbon revenue straight in its digital wallet.
Thank you, Musamba. That is indeed a dream that potentially many of us would like to see, starting on a digital methodology all the way to a whole digital MRV system with payment rails, which makes the payment within 10 minutes of emission reduction taking place. But for that, the critical piece is going to be the digital MRV, Jan Willem. So let's hear from you on where you are on that journey.
Yeah, thank you, and I hope that all can hear me. Yeah, thank you. And it's not only dreaming, but also to be very awake. On this, so let's say a lot of these things, and I'm very happy we're sitting here indeed with all parties together, and I hope that over time more parties will join this effort in the digitalization of the whole chain, from projects to ultimate repayment and etc. And it's very important because we need to standardize, we need to digitalize for a couple of reasons. One of them is you all know that we dramatically need to scale up climate finance and carbon markets. And it's very important that the project sponsors see the money coming through as soon as possible, because that will lead to that necessary scale up. So in a way, we started this digitalization of MFV project basically in a source of frustration, and the frustration was that we did in the past quite a few JR and CDM projects, and we were spending quite a bit of money on verification processes, and basically, and the frustration was that you have installations that were already have electronic meters with electronic outputs, and then that's being put on paper, and then you have consultants moving that paper from one country to another country, and then another country, and in the meantime mistakes are being made, and before you know it you spend over 2 years on a verification process, whilst the outcome is still the same. So this is really an attempt to also reduce transaction cost a lot, and increasing the reliability and the robustness of the data. Now, and I'm saying that, and it's also important for, let's say in the climate finance discussions, there's a lot of focus on increasing the input numbers to climate finance, but we don't know so much on what it is realizing, what the achievements are of that, all that climate finance, and that should be really the focus, because that is the only thing which will help us to try to stay below 1.5 degrees. So we have been working, and we found a sponsor, being Spain, willing to provide the technical, so the funding to help us on designing a digital MFV system. As you may know, the EBRD is a multilateral bank that mainly invests in projects, and so we have a number of renewable energy projects and so on, where we are now testing this digital MFV. We also developed a protocol that, if followed, would indeed reduce the need for verification processes and so on, because also there a lot can be automated, and we can eventually also, we didn't venture into that, but that would be a next phase, also to use AI and other type of big data mechanisms to find out where the discrepancies are in the data and whether we can live with it or not, and then leading to automatic issuance of credits and so on. So this is a bit the story on this slide. So we take physical layer measurements, we put them in a database, and then eventually that can be transported into national registry, which is, next slide please, which is the next phase of our, so the World Bank is doing a lot on national level registries, for example in Jordan. We also have a digital MFV project in Jordan, so we can start to explore how to connect that kind of real-time data level to the national level. Of course, the reporting intervals are different, so that's one area to look at, but you can see that there is information we need in an automatic way from the central database, but there's also then information flowing from the project to the central database, and it's really determining which in the data layers and what direction it should go, but also then decide what are automatic processes to consult, to see what needs to be corrected. Even electronic meters can go, are we from time to time, so what do you do then with those circumstances, and yeah, and I frankly think that by putting a lot of emphasis on the automated monitoring at the project level that is also leading to a lot of good information to the project sponsor themselves to optimize their production processes and trying to kind of become more efficient and creating greater yields and so on. So it's also good inherently for the project sponsors that we work with. Now we're doing this at the moment in Jordan. And we also have a project in Kazakhstan. We're working with the Clean Technology Fund, sponsoring further action in this regard. And then of course we are happy in this group to further share our findings and see how we further can build up and scale that aspect of the climate finance / carbon market.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, Jan Willem. In the interest of time, I'll go straight to Alex. And Alex, you'll talk about the platform and the registry, and we'll have a short video after your intervention on your registry work as well.
Yes.
So over to you.
So thank you, Chandra. As Chandra already mentioned, the main contribution of UNDP to the Digital for Climate work group is the ITMO cooperation or workflow platform and also national registries. And I will share my presentation with a colleague who will contribute via a video. This will be shown in a second, but so I will keep it relatively short. So the main objective of this ITMO workflow or ITMO cooperation platform is to simplify the implementation processes for project developers through prompts that the platform offers, and to streamline approval processes for governments. The key feature is that the platform is modular, so it can be easily amended and new countries can be added quickly and at low costs. Each module of the platform is pre-developed and it follows the known steps of each carbon project, from creation, validation, monitoring, verification, up to the issuance. And the request to issuance is the last step on this platform, and is then the actual issuance is then happening on the registry. So the security of the platform was assessed by the UN International Computing Center and was, of course, also approved by UNDP's Information Security Team. And each country is newly set up on this platform, so it is not a standardized platform. It is really a platform that is completely aligned with the steps that are agreed and through an Article 6 framework, for example, at country level. And only once the ITMO process steps are defined, they are set up here on the platform. We have already set up Vanuatu, and we have set up a small portion, and I will talk about this in a second, for Ghana, but the full platform is currently set up for several countries, including Uruguay, Malawi, Morocco, Georgia, Ukraine. So several countries benefit already from the features of this platform. And it has different sections, and the key section for countries is the country section, where only pre-agreed users, so country administrators, able to approve project developers, validators, verifiers. And project developers, validators, verifiers can register at the project, in the project section of the platform, and will then be approved by the country admin. And in order to also simplify the monitoring processes for project developers, we have developed web apps where project developers can submit information related to the implementation of the projects, including photos and videos to prove actual implementation. And this is linked to the module, monitoring module on the platform, and this is done for Ghana, where we work with farmers, and farmers submit only one information piece, which is the hectare over which the methodology or the project is applied. And this information is then sent to the platform, and the emission reductions are automatically calculated. And in order to offer this end-to-end digital system, which is, I think, the vision of the working group, we have linked the platform to the UN Digital Public Good Registry, and we are currently in the process of linking it to the core registry of the World Bank. And both registries are then also linked to the Climate Action Data Trust, the metadata platform where all the details and information is compiled. But now I will hand over to my colleague, Rena, who will participate via video. Thank you.
I am the Digital Innovation Lead for Nature, Climate, and Energy working at UNDP. Very nice to be here with you. So I will be presenting the next piece of the digital ecosystem, which is, I hope you can see, ready to install modular national transparency system as a digital public good. So as you can imagine, monitoring and managing climate-related data is extremely challenging at the national level. You have to manage your GHG inventory, finance flow, both the mitigation and adaptation actions, and then you also have to manage your carbon credits if you enter it into any kind of trading system. So we as UNDP support more than 120 countries on their NDC implementation through an initiative called the Climate Promise. And of course, we work alongside major players like the World Bank. And while we were supporting these countries, we noticed that a lot of them, especially from the least developed countries and the SIDS, the small island development states, were starting to express the need for building a new digital transparency system and a carbon registry. And so, and often their needs were very similar because, naturally, because we all have to adhere to international guidance and standards. We also noticed that World Bank colleagues, as well as other international development partners, were, alongside UNDP, we were all basically developing very similar systems in parallel for each of these countries. So we thought, can we consolidate this effort and come up with one standardized or semi-standardized system that we can all share in an open source way, and something that's ready to install so that any country that wants to start their own system can come and utilize the open source code base and then configure it based on their national needs. So that's why it's called the ready to install modular transparency system at the national level. So it will support effective management of national data and information flow. And of course, it follows the very complex international requirements. We built the module, the first module, which was the carbon registry, based on best practice national systems, which follow UNFCCC guidance, based on a few already supported registries and systems, namely Kenya, Uganda, and Vanuatu, which were supported by UNDP, as well as the Jordan and Sri Lanka registry, which was supported by World Bank. And of course, we added more international expert voices into this development. It is open source, as I said, so each country can install and adopt based on the country context in their own national server system, of course. And we actually encourage the countries to hire local IT vendors so that there's some kind of capacity building involved, and the vendors can continue to maintain the system even after the international support. It obviously lowers the price, the risk, and shortens the lead time because it's reusing software and technical documentation that's already working. The countries can also benefit from continued upgrade because the central code will continue to be maintained and upgraded based on new technology development. So security, integration, these will be updated, which the countries can basically continue like a version upgrade, like your computer. It's also designed for interoperability. We are planning to now connect it with the CAD Trust so that the carbon registry can actually start to send data to the CAD. And so that means that the country, when it actually installs it, it will be able to automatically select send data to the CAD Trust or not. That's up to the country. And it's also already connected to the cooperation platform, which my colleague Alex presented. So that means that when the cooperation platform notices that the project is ready for an ITMO issuance, and when the Switzerland government signs off, then it sends that data to this carbon registry if the national government has it already, and then the carbon registry can issue its credit or ITMO. So that's how it already is starting to work. And as I said, the right-hand side of the slide, the carbon registry, was already launched and accredited as DPG in March. Now we are in the process of designing the national MRV system side together with World Bank and the D4C Working Group members, as well as other international agencies as they evolve. So that is how it is. For private sector companies, if you are in the audience, I would really like to encourage you to take a look at the GitHub space. All the APIs are open, and after all, this is supposed to be a public infrastructure where your innovation should flourish on top of. So I would love to really hear how something like this can help your project be digitalized, or what other MRV tools can be connected into something like this. Thank you so much. Back to you.
Okay, so thanks to Reina there. We've been working together with UNDP as a key partner along with others as well, and remarkable progress has been made. But now let me hand it over to Gemma to talk about the offering from the World Bank Climate Warehouse Program.
Great. So thank you so much. And we have heard from Alexandra and from Reina on the UNDP offering on the registries. And this is a great segue to explain a little bit what we have been building at the World Bank. Also now an offering under Digital for Climate Working Group. So as we have been witnessing, carbon markets keep changing, and with them, the technical and the policy requirements around accounting, tracking, reporting. And so in this fast-evolving space, countries need to be ready, need to equip themselves, and to develop the right infrastructure to comply with the multiple requirements. And so to be able to deliver this effective infrastructure, the World Bank offers to support establishing a registry and an MRV system. And basically, the MRV system supports the reporting of emissions and emission savings. The registry would support the tracking and the transaction of tradable credits. And so in this context, we developed, on one hand, the enhanced registry, the one that you see in the second hand. The enhanced registry was developed with the World Bank Partnership for Market Implementation Program 2 years ago and rolled out in Jordan and Sri Lanka. It provides the main functionalities for Article 6 requirements, and it's built on an open source software. And it has also embedded a national level MRV system that you can track project work streams, you can create project types and methodologies, and in some instances, you can link it to the GIG inventory. The other registry that we're offering is currently under development, will be finalized by end of summer, core registry, we call it. It's a more simplified registry. It basically offers basic functionalities for Article 6. It has a more simplified way of entering data in a manual mechanism in case the stakeholder has less capacity to do an automatic integration. And it uses blockchain technology in this case, basically because it's the functionality to digitize carbon credits and being able to tokenize and trade them in this format if the stakeholder wishes to. An important highlight is that the core registry syncs automatically with the Climate Action Data Trust. The enhanced registry can be also connected to the Climate Action Data Trust through a translation layer. Now, for those of you that don't know about the Climate Action Data Trust, it's a global platform that was launched last year in December by the World Bank, the government of Singapore, and IETA. And this platform aims to connect all the registries in the world and harmonize and aggregate carbon credit data in one place, because right now we have disparate registries, different data formats, different governance models, and it's very difficult to find in one place what's going on the carbon credits, the projects, the units, the dates, the issuance, the status of these units. And so we encourage you, if you want to know more about this platform, to stay in this room and attend the next workshop where we will be deep diving on the CAT Trust. So, and last but not least, just wanted to mention that in addition to the open source infrastructure, we also provide capacity building. So identifying the infrastructure strategy, what questions we need to address. A country needs an MRV or a registry or both. Do we need a register or a transaction registry? Do we need to link them together? if the process is set in place, which the stakeholders are involved, who validates, who approves across ministries. And when you publish data, what is the frequency of this data? Who should be validating it, and how much you're going to be updating it. And finally, maintenance requirements, because once you put the solution there, if you wanted the long-term sustainability, you have to think about this, the cloud services, who's going to be there in the facility, managing the registry or the MRV. So we want to answer these questions in this capacity building program and working with all these countries and including the onboarding of the CAD Trust. So I will stop here and pass it over to Chandra for this.
Thanks. Thank you, Gemma. Again, a shout out for those who are interested to stay on for the next session. But before that, we have two experts from the ecosystem who we've invited to provide their ideas in terms of how this partnership of the multilateral international institutions can further prepare the overall carbon market infrastructure so that it serves your needs. Tell us if there are ways in which we are hindering your needs or creating obstacles for you. This is right in the open opportunity for you to tell us the right things we're doing, the wrong things we're doing. Over to you, Juan first.
Thank you. Thank you, Chandra, and thanks all the participants. So actually, as we see it from eco-registry, from our perspective, is actually, and when we were invited to participate in the CAD Trust implementation, it was very important for us to understand that we are building an ecosystem. And this ecosystem is answering two questions. One of them is allowing people to develop projects and mitigation activities as fast as possible and with high integrity implementation. So that's the first important question, where each one of the carbon units comes from. That's very important to solve. Then that's why we understood that, for example, we have different measurement systems. As Masamba was telling, these measurement systems need to go to the registry platforms so that they can be acknowledged by a methodology and you can quantify each carbon unit. If it is actually without human interaction, then it's better because it enhances transparency and integrity. That's very important. That accounts for the first question. And then afterwards, then you need to account for where each credit goes to. So how to track every single credit. And that's why I believe the CAD Trust is very important, because the CAD Trust allows us to share all the information with the CAD Trust. So as a metadata registry system, it contains all the information about every single project and every single carbon unit in this case, or any type of climate asset. And then you can transfer, retire. It can be through the CAD Trust, or it can be actually on the registry itself, but the information is reported to the CAD Trust. And when you have all that information, then you can build, for example, automated biannual transparency reports. You can have all the information to track your NDC's achievements, and that's very important. That's why we see, and this picture, what it tries to show is the importance of the development, for example, of a common information model to exchange all that information in one specific database so that every single registry around the world can connect to and can interact with other registries, because that's what transparency is about, connecting information between each other. Next one, please. So, and last, I just wanted to explain to you a little bit about a pilot in connection that we did. It's a registry that was registered on eco-registry. The carbon credits were acquired by the Carbon Opportunities Fund. And the Carbon Opportunities Fund is actually like a broker in this case. The project, every single information about the project and the carbon units are stored in eco-registry and sent to the CAD Trust. Then the transaction is done through the CAD Trust, so an end beneficiary can claim the carbon offsetting of some actions that they do. It was an e-commerce in this case. So the whole interaction was done through a bridge between the two systems. So there was human interaction, but just handling the system. But you could track every single carbon credit, where it came from and where it went to, and what it was retired for. And that's what was important. We had the help also from I4C. And that actually we see, and while we were doing this pilot, we understood also the importance, for example, of these independent registries, how they can also track every single voluntary carbon market credit and how it interacts in the future also with the regulated carbon markets. That's very important. And the time is up, so I will let Benoit tell us also his view. Thank you.
Thank you again for inviting us up here. It's very exciting to see all the work that all of these different players in the market are putting forward. And I mean, we recognize the importance of a lot of these initiatives. And while we've got a lot of really big and exciting changes happening at Vera, we have made some significant progress in the digitalization of PDDs, having a digital stakeholder portal. There's going to be some exciting launches between now and the end of this year in that regard. We've had a DMRV pilot be announced, and so I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to learn from how a lot of these initiatives are already unfolding through the different initiatives that are underway. So there's lots of collaboration and shared learnings that can take place as a result of that, and we can improve and iterate more quickly in that way. So I don't think there's anything that's being done that's creating more obstacles. In fact, I think there's just more opportunities for learning that's coming out of all of this. We see how digital assets can create a opportunity to have readily and rapidly comparable carbon credits, which is super important for market liquidity, and at the same time having the transparency, the auditability that we need throughout that entire process. We're seeing over and over again, there's lots of market signals that are requesting this. So yeah, we're very excited about the internal discussions that are happening, and we look forward to continuing this pursuit.
So thank you. Thank you to the whole panel. Now, I do realize we have run out of time, but we can't go without the audience participation in terms of questions. I see immediately somebody staking a claim to use a blockchain language. So please, in the back there, if the mic could be given. So while the mic goes there, I think the point we wanted to convey is there's a lot of work to be done in building the ecosystem. All of us are doing our little parts here, trying to create modular open source systems which are available on GitHub. So those of you who are involved in the development of software, because we don't want the ecosystem to be limited by the imagination of the institutions that are represented on the floor. There's much more innovation out there in the audience and beyond. And I think the goal for us is to try to encourage by providing the starting point of the systems that you've seen presented here. And the idea is we'd love a wider set of participation. We are building an infrastructure, so collaboration is dependent on open source, free to license software. And so it would be great on those terms for us to have a wider engagement. So over to you, sir. In the back, if you didn't get a mic yet. Okay. So the idea is to have as much participation as possible. So over to you.
Thank you. My name is Alan, and I'm a co-founder at Carbon HQ. We're building a digital solution for project developers to manage their carbon projects and manage their carbon credit inventory. So my question is, what sort of innovation would you like to see, particularly coming out of the private sector and startups, if there are any, and how should startups work with you guys and get involved?
So that's a pretty wide question. It depends on what part of the ecosystem you're developing a solution for. You see, Juan Duran Eco Registry is a private sector registry developer. Standards like Vera are working on it. So is there a specific element? I mean, clearly, I think Masamba is going to count a lot on those of you with large language model expertise to help him move to digitization 4.0. So it depends on which part of the ecosystem you're looking at. Please do approach us after to talk to anyone here if there's a particular interest that you have in working. Any other question or comment or suggestion? Mic is coming, sir.
Thank you very much. So my question, I don't know if it's appropriate now. The question is, since we are talking a lot about ecosystem, as long as I understand the reading, the information, Kia is a layer 1 solution. So the question is, why did you decide to start a layer 1 solution by scratch, rather than using some of the ones that are already available, since there are very many CO2 blockchain around, CO2 token based on different blockchains? So that was the question.
I'm not 100% sure I understood, but I think you said there are solutions out there for tokenization, for instance, and what is the...
Specifically about Chia.
Huh?
I'm talking specifically about Chia.
Chia.
Which I understood so far that is the token behind the data platform. As long as I understand, but I might be wrong, Chia is a layer 1 solution. So the question is, since we are talking about ecosystem, why did you decide to start a layer 1 solution by scratch, rather than choosing one of the available one?
Okay. So do you want to go for it?
I can take that, and then I will also let them to comment. So initially, when we were building the Climate Action Data Trust, this global platform, we tested this platform for 3 years, and we tested many blockchains, existing blockchains, Hyperledger, Kaleido as a software, Ethereum, and many other private blockchains. Eventually, when we were building the operational prototype, we were interested in a public blockchain, permissionless, that would allow us for more inclusiveness and interoperability, and also we were looking for a lower environmental impact, so less energy intensive. And so after consultations and group of experts evaluating a number of options, we did select Chia Network for the testing of the operational phase. And then the minimum viable product was finalized, and then eventually it was operationalized under Chia blockchain, underlying blockchain, but of course acknowledging that we will see many other blockchains in the future, and we are already conceptualizing an oracle for cross-chain interoperability operations. Now, once we finalized this simulation, we started conceptualizing the transaction layer, which is a tokenization engine. And because the CAD Trust, this platform, is the anchor of the ecosystem, we wanted to leverage this layer 1 blockchain to develop this tokenization tool that would allow for native tokenization, which is something that we are not seeing yet at scale, which is allowing registries to tokenize their own credits. And maybe Juan can explain a bit more, or Benoit, if you want to add into this. So basically, that was the process. Again, we're in a process of always conceptualizing, testing, prototyping, and failing, and then starting again. And this, so far, is working, and we're always in contact with the stakeholders, and that's why we're looking at the use cases and seeing lessons learned and see that it's working. So hopefully that's answered your question, but happy to discuss more.
You can go there on the podium. Use the podium, yeah.
Here, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Good, perfect. So actually, eco-registry, it's a registry system, but it's based on blockchain technology. We have been around, I believe, since 2017. So actually, the key point there, and when we started discussing with Chia, because we use another blockchain system, when we started discussing with the CAD Trust, with the World Bank, with Chia Network, and we participated in the process of the climate warehouse, for us it was very important to understand that blockchain is just a technology. As Gemma said, they are looking for an oracle so that you can exchange between different blockchain systems, so that's very important. From our perspective, it's just you need to have the capability of sharing your information with multiple systems and be allowed to do that. So that's something that you build in different phases, and I believe that's what they are doing. So they chose Chia Network for this first time, but I believe they are open, or there will come new evolutions on the systems. So.
Okay, so I think we are overstaying our welcome here. We are running out of time. Some of us will be available after this session, and as we mentioned, there's going to be a session on the CAD Trust to follow. So thank you for your interest, and join me in giving applause to the speakers, and thank you to all of you.